Welcome to The Problem, a Lockwood & Co. podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
And today we are discussing part 3 of part 4, The Siege of Portland Row. Although the siege part is over.
Oh, I guess that's true. Or they're the one, they were always the ones being besieged. This is like, we gave up, we lost, kind of.
We are moving on into the world of the dead. Yeah. Also, I don't know, reading through these chapters, I think they could have been one chapter.
Yeah, he does a really great chapter ending at the end of chapter 21. But it's true that I guess they could have just gotten...
There's a lot of the same things of like, we're in a hallway and it is dark and scary. We're on a street and it is dark and scary. The ghosts are scary. And it's like, okay, come on.
I think, this would be like 5 to 7 minutes in an episode of the TV show. It would be like an impactful thing, but it's true. There's
I don't even know if it would be that long.
Thing.
Like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot.
They got to show you like the portals and Ezekiel and Kipps.
I mean, I don't think
having his journey.
I like that we see Marissa and Ezekiel here, but I actually don't think that's necessary.
Oh, really? I think it's I think it changes something about her. But yeah, we'll get into it.
Okay. All right, chapter 21. Lockwood & Co. make their way through dark London, and the chapter art is like footprints in a frosty road.
I think this is what's his name now? Winkman, right? It's like Winkman's footprints.
Oh, maybe because he ran off ahead of them. Right.
Yeah, they like follow him out of the building last time.
Yeah.
And then and
I just thought
away.
It could be their own footprint. Like, I just thought it was footprints.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like, is there a bit where they're following footprints? I didn't notice one, but I'm not.
They see them. Yeah. They see one set of footprints, which I thought was weird.
I remembered footprints coming up, but I did think that they were just talking about their own.
Maybe they are like the sand people and walk in a straight line to hide their numbers, like
Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. I think these the first like paragraph here is actually like a really good summary of these two chapters.
Yeah.
It has that same tone that the beginning of the book has of like, this is the tell-all inside story of like, hey, if you just want to skip these chapters, like this place is weird and it's nothing like our London and it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. And then you can just kind of move on because it's just that over and over and over again, like you said.
Yes. Then after that, we do just go to them walking down Portland Row and more of like everything is familiar, but not. And we get that same light that we saw in book 4 that seems to come from nowhere, but is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these scenes would be filmed in black and white, but like that overly bright, overly saturated black and white.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Really washed out, desaturated.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have to be fully black and white. But
almost like you could see like the grains on the TV. Grains isn't the word, but you know.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I do think there's like really good mood setting all throughout Dark London with like the word choices that he's making. Like it talks about they follow the set of footprints that are ahead of them and it goes into Arif's store, and it says that the wide shop windows hung blank and open with mist swirling deep inside the carcass of the building. So like the building has a carcass, it's dead, and just a lot of imagery like that gets repeated over and over and over, so that there's just a feeling of emptiness, of nothingness, deadness, stillness to this world that's like eerie and weird and uncanny. So he's really good about his use of language, I think, to set the tone. Yeah, I guess Winkman wanted ghost donuts, so he went to Arif's. I don't know why he goes there. I don't think we ever see Winkman again. Maybe there's like a secret gate in Arif's or something. He just immediately hopped over.
I remember reading about Arif's, but now I can't find it.
Yeah, here the footprints veered away along a side street and were lost to sight. We did not follow them. If it had been Winkman's we'd seen, he had taken his own way. So we just don't know what happens after Winkman dies. And that's like another person that they murdered, by the way. They just like, it's another guy they killed, which is fine. Like, I'm not.
Yeah, Winkman
They shouldn't
deserved
kill
it.
Winkman. Yeah, but they did kill a guy. Again.
So, like, yeah, and they seem good with it.
Mm-hmm.
They walk a lot and they talk about how they're feeling and if they're going the quickest way, and then suddenly they have to avoid a ghost that's following them. And we never learn anything about this ghost.
So you're talking about this guy is like has the wide brim hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he like follows them till the end of the chapter.
Okay, so there's in Welsh folklore or like like the heritage of Brittany writ large, I guess.
Right.
There's a ghost figure, kind of supernatural creature called the Anku that this reminds me of. I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing.
I'd probably have to see it written. I read a lot of things, but I don't talk about them, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm saying it right for that exact reason. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous about it. It's Ankou is how you spell it.
Okay.
But it's like, it kind of like a skeletal creature. When you can see its face, it usually has like ragged clothing. And it gathers souls, and the distinctive part of its silhouette is that it has this really wide-brimmed hat.
Interesting.
So
almost like it's trying to gather them up.
yeah, it follows them and seems to shepherd them to the gate and doesn't follow them so much
Once
after
they're
that.
there. Yeah, that's interesting.
So I don't know if that's a reference to that. At first, I thought the first thing I think when I read this originally, I was thinking Odin is a character who is often described in a wide-brimmed hat and is a death god also. So I was like, that's kind of interesting, but it doesn't feel Odinic to me. It just feels like ominous. We never see this character. Like, they never get close enough to deal with it. But
Yeah, it's so strange, though, that it's such a driving force in this chapter. But actually, it's creepier that way, that we don't ever learn anything about it.
yeah, I think it's the right choice for exactly that reason. It also like kind of implies that the ghosts don't need to be tied to their sources here. Like, if it is a ghost, I don't know if it is.
Right. But
it could
there's
be
other
like
things
a creature
we see.
of Dark London.
Like,
yeah.
Or not so much tied to their sources, that these ghosts don't have sources.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's what I mean. Is like it's more dangerous here because they can like get followed by stuff.
They can get followed.
And there's nothing to do.
And through Kipps saying that, we've got our weapons and our flares and stuff, we reiterate that Lucy and Lockwood tried a flare and it doesn't work.
Right.
They can still, the ghosts can just walk through them.
Who knows how long their swords would last? If would they disintegrate as they fought? Who knows? So it's just super dangerous here.
And George worries that they're leaving a trail, not just the footprints, but like the vapors coming off them that is described every time we see a living person on the other side.
Yeah, I think what Skull calls these things is lost souls. And it talks about that in here. It says, lost souls, the Skull had called them, and I knew that it was right. They were lost, mindlessly repeating actions that no longer had a meaning. Those are just all over the place that are kind of the sourceless dead that you're talking about. It's also kind of like the subtle reiteration of like how their life has no meaning. And so like, that's why they're dead. Like, they're doing something that doesn't matter anymore over and over again. And that's like what death is in the story. And how like Lockwood has found meaning and all that. I mean, it's a very subtle version of that, but
right.
I think it's just like in the background of Stroud's mind, the difference between life and death.
And then eventually we kind of get answers to all of our questions.
Yeah.
They come across hilariously some ghosts queuing up because they're British.
You think it's different in other places, maybe? like it's like a Torii gate in Japan or something like that, and who knows.
I feel like the Japanese are probably good at lines also.
Yeah, that's true. That's
just true. From what I've seen of them at temples and stuff.
This is creepy though.
Yes,
in a good way.
We see like a 2D gate, like a 2D slab of blackness. That like when you look at it straight on, it's an oval, but when you look at it from the side, it's just like a piece of paper. And the ghosts are all lining up kind of in front of it, but there is like a silver fence around it with spikes sticking out. Hooks
and stuff.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And
they just crash into it, right? Over and over.
Well, it looks like the ghosts understand that they can't get through. And so they're not generally crashing into it, because the one that we see, he like I feel like it described that he couldn't help himself.
Right. Yeah, he's overcome by desire to go through. Yeah.
So he crashes into the fence and is not able to get through, but the hooks and the spikes on the fence keep some of his plasm.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just incredibly evil.
Yeah, this seems to be this is what she's doing, right? She's setting up these fences like this. Yeah. And
you have to wonder, like, they crash into the fence enough, did they lose enough plasm to just not exist?
Disintegrate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she's literally stolen an entire soul.
Right. Who knows what this is doing, you know, like on some kind of larger cosmic energy scale.
Yeah, the metaphysics of it all.
Yeah, it's like we just don't know. I like how the characters themselves, the living characters, are transfixed by this thing, how it has like some kind of deep supernatural effect on them.
Because they are dead in a way, since they're in the world of the dead.
Mm-hmm. And they have ectoplasm and souls in them. So there's something about this that
so it has a pull on them.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, Lockwood gave a sigh that was almost one of longing.
Yeah.
And Kipps says, "I feel it calling to me."
Yeah.
I do like, though, that as they're all kind of being drawn toward it, it is Lockwood that says, wait. Look behind us. We got to get out of here.
Yeah. He stays on task. That is good.
Well, and also he's not taken in by the longing for death here.
Yeah.
Which is
new
for him.
And that's true. That does show growth. Yeah, he's got his discipline. I think he's moved beyond his death wish a little bit.
Yeah.
After his failed proposal under the apple tree with the necklace.
Yeah, he's got his revenge, and Kipps interrupted his necklace.
Yeah. She hasn't
his
said
once
no
per
to him
year
yet.
Necklace giving.
Yeah. This portal thing, I think, is like one of the most intriguing ideas in the books. I love that it's not totally like we don't understand it. That is probably what makes it really intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I really, really like that there doesn't seem to be like any living system of judgment or rules. There's not like any kind of creature here who is saying like, you go through, but not you. You are not ready. And it doesn't seem like anything made this. It just seems like a naturally occurring phenomenon that it naturally appeals even to the living characters. It's literally being gate kept by Fitz.
Yeah.
Like feels like literally satanic, you know, like.
Yes.
Yeah. Like there's this whole part of the afterlife that Satan kind of takes over and turns into hell, but it's not necessarily ever designed for that, you know, in the Christian system. And it just seems like she took over this part of a naturally occurring system for her own purposes in a way that, you know, is like coded satanically to me when I read these books. So it's just really like well done and intriguing and makes the world feel really, really big.
Yeah, I agree. And I also like that, like all those things you say, that there's not a judgment, that there's not a escort or, you know, whatever. All of that could be right on the other side. We just have no idea what's on the other side. And so I like that we don't get those answers. It feels kind of similar to Philip Pullman in not quite the world of the dead in his Dark Materials, but the suburbs of the dead that we see, where all of the dead people know exactly where to go that we meet in those chapters. And then they're all just kind of hanging around until they accept their death.
It is a lot like the suburbs of the dead.
It like almost to the point that this feels kind of inspired by it. Like, what if that, but also this, you know?
Yeah, I wonder, you know, like the Anku thing too. I wonder if there's just something. I'm American. I wonder if there's just something in the British supernatural kind of ancient tradition that speaks to this kind of existence between, you know, the time you die and then the time you move on. If there's an idea of that I'm just not familiar with.
I also do not know.
It's like a really smart way, you know, from a commercial standpoint. He's not saying like, oh, this one religion was right and these other ones are wrong. We just can't know the answers to that because we don't ever pass through this gate. But the idea of the gate itself is like powerful. It's really potent.
Yeah.
And preserves, you know, your ability as a reader to believe whatever you want.
Yeah.
But they kind of break out of it. It says they force themselves into action and hurry off again. And that same...
Because that guy is chasing them, yeah.
Yeah, they see that guy again and they're like, we got to get out of here.
We say that guy, like the ghost, the thing, the wide-brimmed
It's true,
hat.
it could be anything, yeah.
And then this is about where Lucy notices that Quill is doing good, while the rest of them are really feeling like exhausted from... just being here, and like they all sound run down. But Quill is ready to go. He's like scouting ahead.
He says it did. She was asking him if the wound on his side from Gale stabbing him before they went through the portal, if you remember. She asked him if it's giving him any trouble, and he says it did hurt at first, but it's calmed down now. Don't notice it at all. And yeah, he's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Yep.
So this is good foreshadowing, right? It allows the reader to kind of put the clues together. Something's off about Kipps.
Yeah. And this is also when they duck into like a shop to take a break because they've been walking for a while and
they just can't handle it anymore.
They can't handle all the stuff. And then Lockwood comes to talk to Lucy.
Yep. He's like, I know what will recharge your batteries. My backstory. You love my backstory.
It's true, actually.
She does.
She does, yeah. And this is where we learn about Flo and how they met.
This is great.
And it is a fun distraction. I think that this was a good choice.
Do you think this was always true? Or is this like a retcon? Or...
It feels like it was always true, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I feel like it was always true. I don't feel like it's a retcon.
We met Flo pretty early on, and we heard that...
Book 2, yeah.
Yeah, but we heard the fencing story in book 1, right?
I don't know.
I don't know
I don't remember. Yeah, because we do meet Kipps in book 1.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know if Lucy asks about, you know, why they hate each other so much, or why Kipps hates Lockwood. Until book 2. It might, like, if we heard that story in book 2, then definitely. Right? But if it was book 1, maybe not. But either way, he had something in mind for who beat Lockwood.
I feel like that story happens, it's told by Lockwood and George. Like, George tells the part about stabbing in the butt, and Lockwood does not include that in his version of it. And, like, George has to, like... say that, and then Lockwood's like, who cares about that? So I think that's book 2, if I remember right, but I might be wrong. Yeah. But in any case, the whole thing is like he beat Kipps to move on to, like, you know, who's going to be the champion, and it's him versus Flo Bones, and she just mops the floor with him. Like, she's so much better than he is, which is a great, like, surprise detail about Flo.
Yeah. And then we learn that she, you know, has also had a traumatic night in a haunted building, like they all have, I guess.
Yeah.
And that she was just done with being an agent then.
Everybody else died. She had to protect herself from, I think it's a limbless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hide behind a giant iron cross for the entire night until the sun comes out.
Yeah.
And she's so traumatized it like changes her personality forever.
Yeah. And presumably with the corpses of her, they call them mentors, but presumably at that time that was her family.
Right.
You know, like not blood family, but like they were raising her.
Because it was like a tiny agency and they all died. Yeah, it was just
those
right?
two and her. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So this would be like Lockwood and Co. and they all die except Lucy kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And she's just like, I'm out.
I don't think it ever says how old they were, but if they were adults, then it was probably her, like she probably felt that it was her job to protect them.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
It doesn't say if they could still see ghosts or not, which means that they were trying to be good and like go in with her and stuff, you know, like
right.
It just sucks.
Right. Yeah. It's funny too. Like this isn't funny. It's just, I don't know. I really love this, but it's also just kind of funny where Lucy is like, I didn't speak for a moment. Why are you telling me this? To cheer you up, as I said, and to remind you, we're survivors too. George, Quill, Holly, like, and like Lockwood's right. Like they're all survivors. And like, but it's weird to tell this story about how, you know, this tragedy broke Flo. It like just, you know, to cheer you up. I don't know. It's like this terrible world that these poor kids live in. But it's also like, you know, there's a kind of spiritual battle that's happening here on the other side where they have to like choose to move on. They don't have the physical endurance to do it. It's like mind over matter.
Yeah.
And there's something here about like stories fight against death. They give us the tools to find a new way to live, to reframe things, to give us the energy to move. I really like that. Don't forget who you are. Don't give in to this feeling like you're a survivor. We can make it. Death isn't, we don't have to give into it. I like that. Even though it's a little weird to be like, here's the tragedy of Flo Bones. Doesn't this cheer you up?
Yeah. It's also just very them, you know, like that's the world that they've grown up in. One thing I didn't like about this is Lucy has a line just after Lockwood has described what happened to Flo where she says it made her cracked in the head. And that's just so incredibly unkind.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it feels like it doesn't fit. I don't like that Lucy said that. It's really shitty.
Especially since, I mean, I think her break with society is more extreme than theirs, but they're all a bit cracked, right?
Yeah,
like they're
exactly.
all, none of them are okay. I mean, maybe she just can't see that right now. But...
Maybe if there was a little bit more there about Lucy reflecting on how that story was similar to hers and how maybe she too is a bit cracked, I would be okay with this, but it really just feels like Stroud was trying to make a joke there. And it sucks.
I think it is a joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wrong too, because like immediately right here, I was like, oh, it herds them to the gate and then leaves them alone, but it's still following them. The broad-brimmed hat.
Well, they didn't go in.
Right. So it's like, well, there's another gate up here, you guys, I guess, and we'll go to the next one.
Yeah. But they do eventually find the will to keep going. So that they do. Yeah,
they kind of, don't they get into like some buildings or something? And Kipps is like, I can lead us through.
To try to escape the brimmed hat dude, they turn down a really tight alley that like closes in as you reach near the end. And Lucy describes that she feels like she's going to be squished. But then they come out in like a dead end courtyard. But there's all these like homes pushed together. So Kipps is like, I can lead us through here. And then this is where I started to feel like this could have been edited, because we go in and Stroud describes these buildings the same way that he was describing Portland Row and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, this whole section didn't need to happen. Like, it adds nothing.
Yeah, it's like a confusing layout inside the building somehow, almost like there's like this thing in modern like horror lore or like online like called the back rooms. It's like endless labyrinthine hallways that a person can just slip into accidentally. That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah. Well, I feel like labyrinths and death are kind of connected in folklore. Maybe I'm making that up.
No, I think that's right.
That feels like a thing.
The Minotaur and the labyrinth and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, it is pages and pages of like, where do we go? It's so narrow. Oh no, it's another dead end. And it in the
book, it's 3 pages, but
yeah,
still, I just don't feel like it did not add to the mood or the plot. It's just here, you know?
The only transition that happens here is that Kipps kind of like takes over because the rest of them are flagging. And you're like, I could see how a young reader might be like, well, Kipps is the oldest. So like he's the strongest, you know, like maybe you would not see exactly the thing that is being built up here. But when you reread it, you can also see it. So I think it kind of works nicely, but yeah, he's like
we see enough of that without this bit, I think. Anyways,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's here and it's over.
Right. It says I do like this ending. It says the way was blocked, the chase was over. We were in a street on the edge of Trafalgar Square and it was thronged with London's dead. So like even though they get out of the labyrinth and away from this, you know, like ghost that has been menacing them the whole way, it's kind of like out of the frying pan into the fire.
It does feel like he's been shepherding them to where they now are.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe that is even the thing with the wide-brimmed hat. Maybe we're just supposed to think of a shepherd.
Yeah, true. Yeah, yep. But it goes to chapter 22 where Lockwood and co. arrive at the Fitz house. And that's the only thing that happens.
The art, when I first saw it, I just wrote down, an alive person and a ghost. But obviously when I got there, I was like, it's Marissa and Ezekiel.
I think I said before, too, that like the artist doesn't ever portray the characters. And so I think this is like a rare breach of that. And it's pretty creepy. I think it works really well.
Anyways, I do love that the first line of this chapter is, "It was me who saved us."
Take the credit when you should, Lucy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, good for you.
I was quickest this time.
I think she just like
she just finds a place.
What does she mean by that? She just gets out of the get out of the street, right? Hide right away. Yeah. And then the thing just kind of passes them by. It seems like it gets caught up in the throng of whatever the rest of the dead are interested in around here.
That ghost or whatever is just kind of gone.
Yeah, it says pale shapes came rushing out of the doorway with horrid leaps and bounds. One was the limping man with the broad-brimmed hat. They plunged past our hiding place and continued into the road.
So maybe he was just another ghost and it was all coincidence.
Yeah.
Or he just wanted, he was like, ooh, warmth. I want that.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just going to work.
Yeah.
You guys are on my commute. It's just a coincidence.
But just after this, we see a small company of silver-clad men and women walking down
what are these people doing?
The street, basically, with in amongst all the ghosts. And they are very obviously Orpheus Society people.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they're not wearing cloaks. They've turned them into long tunics.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why didn't somebody think of that earlier? Just wear a dress made of silver. And I just feel like that would have made Kipps even more chicken-like.
Yeah.
And I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah. I think a cloak is easier to make is probably the implication, right?
That's
It's just like a simpler thing to design. And it can be passed on from one person to another more easily than a tunic might have to be.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, they're out here doing a job, it feels like.
Yeah, and the women are wearing the silver stilts that we saw on that one dude back at the HQ, as it were.
Right. Yeah.
Library. And so I do like that we see that they have a purpose, even though I do think they're a little overkill. I don't know how else to describe that. Like, why are you wearing stilts when you could just be holding a pole?
Yeah.
Whatever.
It was when I reread the book and I got to where that guy is on stilts in the library, I was like, why do they need, what are they for? And then I got to this part and I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. It's like, you don't want to deal with crowd control. You can just walk through the ghosts, and it's kind of like a good solution, I guess. But it's kind
of like watching a mech anime. You know, you can't ask why. You just got to say, well, I guess it looks cool.
Right, right, yeah. Wouldn't a tank be easier? But no, we got to make it so it can walk. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. Could you imagine that seems like the next step, right? Like
absolutely. The old people discover Gundam Wing. And
right.
I don't know why I chose that Gundam in particular. And the lights go off in their eyes and they're like, that's our next project.
Right.
But they're obviously collecting the plasma. Plasma?
Right. Or plasm.
Plasm.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, plasma's a real thing.
Yeah. They're collecting the stuff of the sun. They have clusters of small glass cylinders hanging over their shoulders. They're wearing the stilts, and they're like putting the stuff in the glass cylinders, it seems like, or something.
But here's my question. Do you think these old people have any idea what they're doing? Are benefiting from, like, do they know what the plasm does? Do they benefit from it? What is their reward for this? Just getting
I don't think they know. Yeah, I don't think they know at all. It's like I said before, I think they're like estranged from their labor. This is like how capitalism works. You don't know exactly what your role contributes to the entire process. You just know what your role is, and then you like try to do your best job at that role. And so they've just been, I think that these people don't even have to be in on the conspiracy of it. They could just be like, well, we've found a new way that the problem is like, there's all these ghosts, and if we collect material from them, then they're weaker, and this is going to help us to fight back. So you're doing really important work that like nobody else can do by going out and do. I could imagine them being told that and just being like, you're a special kind of agent.
Right.
You know, you grow old and die, and like, oh, sorry about that, you know, from like going to the other side.
Well, even if they are like old people, we've seen so much of older people being resentful of the young and not trusting them.
Yeah.
And not believing in ghosts, even despite the world that they live in. So it must feel kind of powerful to take that back from the young people, to know more than them, to have seen more than them.
Yeah, and to go into the place and feel like, oh, you really understand. You're dealing with these sources and stuff. I'm dealing with the real thing.
Yeah. It just feels like it just feels like what they said I don't remember specifically, while they were at the library, that maybe they did think that they were at least working towards immortality.
Yeah, I think those guys know about that.
But that's
especially because they had that book.
These are these guys, aren't they?
Are they well, they might be Orpheus Society people, but I feel like all those people are dead for one thing.
Oh, that's true.
You know, like there might be more than one Orpheus Society chapter.
Do you think this is just
something.
Like high up Fitz people?
Yeah, or something like that. They could be other Orpheus Society people who are like junior members or whatever. I feel like that was like the cream of the crop people, you know?
Yes, I see. So this is like the 30-year-olds.
Right, yeah, exactly. They're like, "Oh yeah, you're like the, you know, the children of the industrialists, and you're in the club too, but you've got to pay your dues and go out there and get ectoplasm." Pull yourself up by your ectoplasm boots.
And you get silver stilts.
Right.
Who doesn't want silver stilts to fight off the ghosts? Because I don't think we ever actually said that is what they're using them for. They're like waving them about in the throngs of ghosts that come towards them to keep them away.
But they want them to come close, right? Because they're also harvesting off of them as they're doing that.
Oh, are they?
Isn't that happening?
I thought they were just going up to the gates and getting it.
And getting the stuff there. Maybe that's right.
But it just seems like such an odd choice. The stilts in particular. Why not a shield? Why not a proper sword instead of a fencing sword? You know, like, because then it wouldn't be as flimsy.
So it says here, under the coating of ice, you could see that some of them shone with a vibrant light. I'm assuming this is like the people. I thought of the silver fences we'd seen with the bright white flecks of plasm hanging on them, and I knew that this was a team that collected the plasm from such places, then carried it back to the woman at Fitz's house. Yeah. So like you're saying, they go out there and collect the plasm. I really like this bit, though. It says, suddenly, beneath my weariness and desperation, beneath the awful numbing cold, a great anger flared inside me, a desire to see justice done, which I feel like is the heroic impulse that's in these books. It's like not motivated by comfort or profit or power, but it's like this internal movement towards justice and fairness that the characters want to make a better world for its own sake. And this is also on behalf of the dead, which Lucy has always been aligned in that way, I think, even from book one.
Yes. Yeah. She's always wanted to help them.
Yeah.
More than destroy them.
Yeah.
And then they reach Fitz's house, and like they see the collectors go in, and or I think they do. Or they stare at Fitz's house for a bit, and they don't see any sign of the collectors. And then they see someone come out. Or go back in, or something. And
there's also like these big silver curtains that like protect the structure of Fitz's house in dark London.
Yes.
Which is like a really interesting, like they're fortified in a way that all the other places aren't.
On both sides.
Which is really interesting. Yeah.
And that is interesting.
Well, they see Marissa, right? Penelope, I guess. I don't know are they seeing Marissa in Penelope here?
I don't think they do.
It says the first was a woman, tall and beautiful. She wore a silver cloak that went down to her feet. It swished and swirled around her and turned the mist to golden froth. Blah, 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 blah. It was the woman known in our London as Penelope Fitz. Yeah, but we knew her real name.
But the bit that you skipped was Lucy saying we recognized the lines of her face. So
right.
Think
like
they
her
are
body.
Penelope.
Yeah.
Body-wise,
but
yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to skip to, it says beside her was something that wasn't human at all, because this is like the first time we actually get to encounter this character. It had the vague shape of a man, tall and slim and glowing with a blazing light. It did not walk, but drifted forward in midair. You could see two golden eyes, and above its head was a coronet of pure white fire. This ghost looks different than like any other ghost that we've seen. This is Ezekiel. He has like a halo. I feel like this is really pretentious on his part. I don't know. Like, I don't think that he's formed this way, but I think that he has formed himself this way is how it feels to me.
I'm sad that we don't get more time with Skull outside of the jar.
Yeah. Would he become this?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, would he look something like this? Like, is this just what Type 3s look like? Because technically, we don't have a description of them like we do in the glossary of all the other types of ghosts.
They almost feel, and again, like, we're terrible, like, if you don't care about anime. But, like, they almost feel like anime main characters. Like when you meet any of the main characters, you're like, who is this over designed bitch? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he has main character energy, right? Like he doesn't look like any other ghost.
I feel like they've been so much better about this recently, but I swear there was so many shows where you would pan across a classroom and it would be a sea of brown hair and then one pink.
Yeah, exactly. Green spiky hair. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, main character.
Yeah, green spiky hair for a dude and long straight pink hair for a girl.
Right. And it just feels like this. And the same thing for Skull, kind of. Like he has a very kind of like punk rock, honestly, kind of vibe to him. He's got like the spiky hair and he's real skinny and lanky, and he just feels designed differently than
Main character ghosts.
Yeah. I think it's a cool introduction to Ezekiel. I really love the vibe of this, how they see it from a distance and how stately is the thing that comes into it. Just feels powerful. Both of them, they can just walk over here and they are unbothered.
Yeah.
They're not protected by people, and they're obviously like very conspicuous. Like they're both kind of glowing.
Yeah.
But nobody's bothering them. And so that just feels really powerful and significant.
They must have a reputation with the dead.
It's like, don't mess with her. Yeah.
I do think it's more don't mess with him, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is a cool introduction, as much as I do think it is largely unnecessary. But that's just because I think these chapters should be shorter. It's not the first thing I would cut, but...
It could be condensed. I think in the show it would definitely be quite a bit shorter.
Oh, well, too bad it's never going to happen.
No. There's still a chance. I don't
think there is.
No. Like, could be like a movie, like what the Firefly show did or something. I don't know. But anyway... so they see them go in, and then they're kind of like, now we gotta go in.
Yeah, now we gotta do it. So yeah, they walk into, you know what I am sad about? This was a good opportunity to get an answer to how a ghost crosses over. Like, you know what like, does he walk across the bridge with Marissa? We don't know. Or does he just...
to the, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know the answer.
Or does Ezekiel just decide to be back? Or does he exist on both places at once?
Or in different ways. Yeah. I've always assumed that it's both at once.
But then what is he then this the him on this side, well, I guess
is more I think that, okay, so here's what I think. No evidence of this. That like his ectoplasm, like his being is on this side, on the Dark London side, and that his source presence, like his apparition, his ghost, is on the real world side. I don't know what else to call it.
But
the
Marissa
side
has his source on her.
Right.
So I guess I just don't understand being in two places at once. But I also don't see how they would cross over like that. Because Skull has to be where his, like, the Skull that we see on this side is always
on the
physically,
Dark London side.
Yeah, on Dark London, is always physically where the ghost on the other side is.
Right.
But if that was true for Ezekiel, then people in the real world would be seeing him walk around London. So it's not.
Oh, I see what you mean. Because he would be with Marissa or Penelope all the time. Interesting. Unless he's hiding himself.
I guess that's true. They don't have to appear. I don't know the mechanics of that. I don't even mean with Marissa / Penelope, but I mean in this instance, since he's with her on the dark side and she's just walking around, where is his ghost on the other side? Is it also doing the same thing?
Yeah. I think that's the right question. I'm not sure what the answer to that is. And I also thought that too, when they're like doing all this, are people in London having like creeping shadow visions of people in the streets of London who are like, yeah. And if that's the case, why aren't we seeing that a lot more with all these Orpheus Society people?
I actually don't think that's the case. I think the Orpheus Society technology is way better.
Yeah. And I wonder about that. Like, are the cloaks that they've made somehow like making them less conspicuous than what the creeping shadow was? Because if that theory that we talked about in the creeping shadow, that you can see Lucy and Lockwood, is correct, then even their cloaks don't protect them. I was never into
that theory, though. I've never.
Yeah.
So, but putting that theory aside, though, this kind of makes sense to me because presumably, I forget his name, the guy who was doing that. The other company, Rotwell.
Yeah, Rotwell.
Presumably, he had like his grandfather or whatever notes from when the original Rotwell was working with Marissa.
Yep.
Before all of this technology was refined.
Mm-hmm.
So he was working with the beginning stuff and hasn't had
the refined,
70 years to perfect it.
He's like building a fighter jet and she's building a stealth jet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that all makes sense to me. It's Ezekiel that I'm confused about, and if that theory is true, yes, what you just brought up is also...
Yeah, are they seeing,
iffy on answers
four
there.
or five kids running around London, in cloaks?
Anyways, they all make their way into Fitz's house, and then they figure that the gate must be in the basement, because that's really the only place that makes sense, and they make their way down there. George is doing not good.
Yeah, he's having a hard time. There's this brief thing that happens where they're like walking past the pillars.
Oh, yeah, the pillars. Yes.
And they can see all the ghosts and everything. And they start like screaming out to all of them. And it doesn't bother Lucy so much because she's like used to it.
Yeah.
For ghosts to be screaming at her. But it really bothers the other people because they've never been able to hear ghosts the way that she can. So it's just interesting that on the other side, like none of them are having, like Lucy has perfect ghost vision. It seems like
they
all have perfect hearing. Yeah.
So it seems like talent is connection to the other side, which I guess we already kind of knew, but yeah.
I kind of like that though. It's like, when you're on this side, you have like the full set of powers, and it does say something about like, what exactly does that mean? Are you like connected to death? It seems like the answer is yes. In how your talent operates, which is spooky and cool.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I even like that better with our like weird theory that we never really bring up about Lucy being so powerful because she's the seventh daughter. I don't know. I just think that those two things work well together. The closer to death, or whatever, the bigger her having a more of a connection to death. No reason at all. I just like it. I like those two things together.
Yeah.
And then they do make their way downstairs, and then the best part of the whole chapter.
Yeah.
And somebody says, "And what time do you call this?" As those scolding teenagers coming home past curfew. And of course, we are reunited with Skull.
If I'd have known it'd been this long, I'd have put my curlers in.
Yeah. Oh, and this is just after they find the gate. Like, they see it, and they're like, oh, like Lockwood has a moment where he's like, he lets out a cry of triumph.
Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah. They're all so happy. And then Skull immediately starts scolding them, and it's great. Yeah.
Lucy is like full of relief. How did you get here? And he had been taken here by Gale,
and is now just sort of waiting around to be studied.
Right.
Story of Skull's life.
Yeah, he's in a laboratory again. Laboratory. I'm an American. Jesus, it's a laboratory.
And then Lockwood walks up, and he's like, at Lucy's like, "This is the Skull." And Lockwood's like, "That's his spirit? He looks different." And then Skull's like, "Yeah, you look just the same."
Right. They can hear him, and they're like, wait a minute. Yeah, this is a whole thing for them. This is great.
This is so good. This is my favorite part. Yeah, and then there's just more about what's been going on with Skull, and another bit of Kipps doing way better than everyone. More of Skull, how we got there. Where's my good bit here? Oh, and then, okay, Lockwood says, "Marissa came by. Was she alone?" And Skull says, "Hey, Lucy asked the questions around here. What are you doing?"
Right.
You can't just horn in and take over like you're the leader or something. Where's your respect?
He literally waits for her to, then she has to ask, and he's like, good. That's now I'll answer. Done.
I just love that even Skull is like, whoa. I'm only used to talking to one person. Thank you very much.
Yeah. He has no respect for Lockwood. He hates Lockwood so much.
I love it.
It's good. Yep. He is not very nice about the way he describes all of them. Hangdog, lackluster, clearly dead on your feet. It feels like he's pointing to each one of them as he says it.
Yeah. Disappointed they're not like missing noses and fingers.
Yeah, but then it's like he points at Kipps and he says, "And Kipps, how are you feeling?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "I'm great. Why?" And he's like, "No reason." Which is another, like, I think the first time I read it, that was when I was like, "Oh wait, like Kipps is gonna die." Like,
Yeah. Another thought to the question about Ezekiel that I was just posing is that Skull does confirm that Marissa did just pass through, but she was by herself. So
okay.
maybe Ezekiel just popped right back up to her office.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know, but Ezekiel's source is her bracelet. I almost said necklace, but that's the show. Bracelet.
Yeah. I think we asked this question before too, that like, what if they took the skull through the portal? What would happen?
Yeah. We wanted to see it, but it never happens. But like, obviously Stroud we thought maybe Stroud just didn't want to address it, but Stroud obviously must have an answer because Ezekiel, like, what?
Right.
I want to know.
Yeah. Does she take it off, and then once she's on the other side,
or maybe she leaves it up in her office when she crosses over? That's an interesting question. Maybe putting sources on the other side would be no good.
Yeah.
I want answers,
yeah,
Stroud.
I don't know. If the source is a puncture in the barrier between the two zones, bringing it over to the other side feels like it would close the puncture in some way. So, like, yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah.
But
Lucy asks... Oh, nope, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to... Lucy asks what time it is, and Skull does confirm it's midnight. And then Lockwood... I just think this is funny, because here Skull does answer Lockwood. Lockwood says, that can't be right. Because they were fighting at midnight. And then Skull is like, yeah, that's 24 hours later. I was brought here early morning.
Good for you, Lockwood. Like, you're almost there. So, again, this is more time dilation stuff.
Yeah.
They were on the other side for what was them for a couple hours maybe. And then for the rest of the world, it's been like a day or more. Yeah. So.
And I love how Lucy's like, okay, I'll pick you up when I get through. And Skull is like, if you want. He
also, she asked, like, how can I call you Skull when I can see your whole body?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's your name? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah, he says he's forgotten it. Which I think is a bold-faced lie.
You think it's a lie? Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I think he likes who he is as Skull better than who he was as whoever.
I think that's exactly right. And again, it's like a big contrast to this whole Ezekiel thing, right? Like, yes. I don't think Ezekiel is his name either.
I could see it being his name.
I don't think that's his name.
But it is a lot more pretentious than Skull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like a direct contrast, because I don't think Ezekiel comes from Marissa. It comes from himself. And like Skull comes from Lucy.
Right,
and
yes.
Yeah, there's like an enmeshment there and like a relationship and a realness.
Yeah, that's a good point.
She doesn't have.
It doesn't matter if Ezekiel is his real name or not. It didn't come from her. It doesn't represent their relationship the way Skull does.
Yeah.
The word, the name Skull, not Skull. You know what I mean?
Yep. I even think that it shows a difference in the, like, I don't know, like, dominance of the relationship. I don't, like,
I
Lucy
see what you mean, yes.
Yeah,
that
Lucy
Ezekiel
is more dominant in their relationship, kind of.
Yeah.
And Ezekiel is more dominant in the Marissa relationship, I feel like.
I know it wouldn't make any sense, but I do wish we got to see more of Ezekiel and Marissa and what their relationship was like. Like, there's no possible way to do it. So that's not a criticism. It's just, I would like to know more.
Yeah, I agree. It's really intriguing. I think there is enough there for you to, like, kind of draw these conclusions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some people also say that, like, the way that La Belle Dame kind of, like, had that effect on the one boy, I can't think, who was trying to kill himself and stuff.
Right, yeah.
Even though it was, like, daylight and they're, like, separated by, like, miles and miles, like, he's still under her thrall, that Ezekiel has something like that with Marissa, that, like, it's not totally, like, he's kind of, like, affected her personality in a strong way. Yeah. Like he's the real puppet master of who she has become in a way.
I don't know if
I kind of don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
Marissa's motivations make sense to me. We have no fucking idea what Ezekiel's motivations are.
Yeah, we don't get enough from him. And yeah, but I can see why people would say that. And, you know, because the information is included in this book.
Yeah, I can see that also. But if that were the case, I would want more. Like, for it to be a good story. We would need more of that. More like a flashback or something where we saw how it all came to be. Yeah,
or more of just him. Like, she falls to the side at some point and we just get more of him.
There is something, I guess, about maybe they've been egging each other on all these years.
Mm-hmm. They are one character in a way, right? Like,
yeah, but like even without that being the case, or as far as we know, I do wish we got a little bit more of Ezekiel, because Skull is very different, and Skull doesn't seem to want anything other than his own freedom. Mm-hmm. While Ezekiel seems to like being tied to Marissa.
But it's almost like all of her success, it's almost like a weird marriage, right? Like all of her success in the real world reflects his influence on her.
And influence, yeah.
Yeah.
But we still don't really know what he wants.
Yeah.
Or why he did it. Well, anyways, next we can dive more into him next chapters.
Yep.
They all start crossing over, and Skull sort of talks to Lucy alone and warns her about Kipps. Like, not completely, but in a way that Lucy kind of clues into what's happening with him. Mm-hmm. And she pulls him aside.
George falls too, and
oh yeah.
When he falls, like, Kipps reaches out and like grabs him, and Lucy sees the severity of the wound.
The wound, yes.
Yeah, and it's like way worse than she thought.
Now, I've been trying not to get into it, but George's reaction to being on the other side is one of the reasons I hate what Stroud did with Kipps here. Uh-huh. Because if George's injury or wounds or whatever are still so bad and he is so weak, like we saw him on the proper side, the alive side, and he was still not good. So why wouldn't he get better on the death side if it's just an injury?
Yep. I agree.
Right? Like,
yeah.
If Kipps can live, then George should also be feeling good. The only way that the feeling good thing makes sense is if Kipps is dead.
He's on death's door, yeah. Yeah, it really feels like it feels like a switcheroo. It feels like it should have been one way, and like something happened where it was almost like Stroud was told no. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because technically his body is here on the side of the dead. And so to me, with the way that Stroud is describing the contrast between the two of them, Kipps should be dead the second he steps over.
Yep. That's how it feels to me too.
But
at the very least, he should go into a coma or something.
At the very least.
Yeah.
But as we see coming up, that's not what happens. And I think that is just bad writing.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's also, have you read the finale of the Scarlet and Brown series?
I actually haven't yet. I've been meaning to, but I keep forgetting.
Okay. So I won't get into it, but I will say, so I've read all three of those books. They're great. You should read those books if you like this podcast and Jonathan Stroud, obviously. But those books almost feel like a reaction to this. Like, if you did get into a fight with your publisher and you're like, I want to write something in the same kind of age range, but darker, and that like takes more, like, you know, it's just darker, and is not necessarily more adult. Those books feel like an answer to this. Like, people die, the stakes are high. It just more happens in those books dramatically. And there's even, you know, like redemption of characters that you wouldn't expect in the same way as Kipps and stuff. So I don't know. It just feels, like a big It's disappointing, honestly. Even though I like the joke that happens with it, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like what it built up to.
Yeah. It feels like a lot of, like he left us all these clues for nothing.
Yeah. For a joke almost. Yeah. And it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like he would do that. It feels like he was made to do it or something, you know?
But maybe that's just us thinking that he's... Look,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he wanted the joke. And
maybe he wanted the joke.
This is great. Everybody will love it. I don't know. We weren't fans.
It does feel... It feels like the stakes of being on the other side just whoosh, gone.
Yeah, yeah. And it was so good. It's great. Like, I really love the mood of the other side. Mm-hmm. Dark London is so fascinating. And it does kind of subtract from it retroactively, I think.
Yeah. But we don't know that yet. But I just, specifically because we saw George fall there, I wanted to bring that contrast up. And it really is that makes it annoying to me.
I think that's dead right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, in the very end of the whole thing, though, it says, we crossed the iron wall and left the gate back into our world. Yeah. We were in the proper place. Before we had left the walkway, Kipps was already falling. So, like, that's where we're going to leave it. And it does feel like you know exactly what that means as the reader. So, like, you know, we've obviously spoiled this, but, like, I remember, like, when I read that, I was like, oh no, not Kipps. Like,
yeah.
Oh man.
Same. I genuinely thought he was dead.
Yeah.
But also, like, just before that, when Lucy sees his wound, Quill also gets a look at it, and he has a moment where he's like, oh shit, you know? Like, he realizes what's happened also.
Mm-hmm.
And why he's been feeling so good. And it's this great moment for him of being like, no, I want to, like, because Lucy says, maybe you should stay. And he's like, no, if it's going to happen, I don't want it, you know, I want to be there, like on the proper side.
I want to really, yep.
I want it to
happen. And
he's
also like,
correctly.
I did it for you. I'm glad that I helped. Like, this was worth it. Like, we wouldn't have made it unless this happened. So it all just feels like really, you know, like nicely wrapped up and like arcs this character in this really beautiful way.
Yeah, with him becoming this genuinely essential member of the team.
A big brother instead of like this rival, a protector. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then it's all just like thrown out.
For a joke. Yeah. It's like, come on. So, yeah, we're not fans of this.
Well, like, I'm fans of this. Up till now, it's great, but the way that it turns out is dumb.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
it's funny because...
the end of the chapter.
I think before I read this book, I heard you say a few times that you felt like the character that you related to the most was Kipps. And I was so confused by that. I was like, what is she talking about? Like, is it because you have like your collection of goggles? Like, I don't know what about the character.
Okay. I do remember saying this, but I don't remember why. It's definitely like early book Kipps because he's...
You don't have a collection of goggles.
I don't have a collection of goggles, no. I did have a pair of goggles for a while that were just like some steampunk cosplay ones.
That's funny.
But I did get rid of them when we moved.
You just feel like the odd man out or something?
Odd man out, sure. But what was it? I definitely know when there was like a character quiz going around on Twitter, I got Kipps. Mm-hmm. And I was like, ugh. But then I read it and I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, but I think a lot of it has to do with how I think of work and how I work in a corporate office, right? So there's a lot of drama and people feeling betrayed because other people wanted to get ahead. And I was like, it's a job. Why do you feel betrayed? Why do you feel close to these people at all? What are you talking about?
Right, yeah.
Of course,
why is your self-worth?
Yeah. Why? Of course, they're only out for themselves. It's a job. This is their money. How? Right. Why would you think they'd have any loyalty to anybody? Like, what do you... That's how I think of everything there. But so many people are like, but he owes me because of this, or we're friends, or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you've never hung out outside of this office. You are not friends.
Right.
And why would you want to hang out outside of this office? He's your superior. What are you doing?
The only reason to do that is to get ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not buddies.
So
yeah.
I have, well, I think it's very pragmatic, although I think a lot of people at work think it's kind of cynical. But I think it's mostly that whole, I don't care about people at work. Like, I care about them, but I don't, they're people. We work together. But I don't have my self-worth tied up in all that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get ahead. Well, okay, Kipps does want to get ahead, but you know what I mean.
I don't know that he does. Like, eventually he loses that, right? Like, he loses enough people to be like, this isn't worth it anymore.
Right,
like,
yeah. Well, his early books.
And his talent goes.
Yeah.
He just wants to do the right thing eventually. And he's like, I don't even know how to do that because I don't have my powers.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But... yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Kipps is like such a fascinating side character in so many ways, and to have his character really feels like it fulfilled its arc in these chapters in a way that is so satisfying and really well done. Like, it genuinely, for the age range of reader is really well calibrated and stuff. And then, to kind of turn into a joke almost feels like condescending in the way that we say that these books usually aren't.
Yeah, that is exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah.
It does sort of feel like somebody decided kids couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Which is, whether or not they can, kids are forced to handle death all the time.
Which is like what these books are about.
Yeah.
We just... had Flo Bones lose her entire family in front of us, and then we're like, but don't worry, Kipps is alive. Like, what?
Yeah, probably more complaining about that next week. So don't worry, everyone. True. We're not done yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Got to rehash the things that we've been rehashing since the beginning of the book. I know that's all y'all's favorite thing.
Well... Are there a lot of jokes in this part? I feel like it doesn't happen until the end.
My favorite joke is just Skull being like...
Skull stuff, right?
A worried mom when they all show up, like...
You've been out so late.
What time do you think it is? Or what sort of time is this? I put my book down already.
Yeah, I don't think there's any jokes in chapter 21 that I can think of. They're all in 22, and they're all Skull jokes.
But, it doesn't matter. Chapter 21 could have been full of jokes. My favorite is Skull. Berating them all, scolding them.
Yeah, I guess I agree, because there's not any other option, really. I mean, not even George and Kipps teasing each other doesn't even really happen.
I mean, there's the bad joke that I pointed out where Lucy calls Flo cracked in the head or whatever, but that's not funny.
Gonna say it's kind of funny that Flo is like the best sword fighter in the series. I like that, but it's not exactly funny. I just like the inversion of expectation that happens.
It is like a plot twist.
Yeah, but there's nothing funny there per se. So Skull. I was genuinely laughing out loud with the Skull stuff. Good. So I think that's right.
I feel like he was gone for 1.5 chapters and I missed him. You know? Yeah. Like, he's been gone for longer and I've been like, but this time I was like, oh, Skull, you're the best.
Especially because it feels like you're going to lose him.
Yeah, we're getting near the end here.
Well, I meant like he gets pulled away from them and again, and Lucy's like, no, we don't know where he's going.
That's true. It is.
And then
like the first time you read it, it is genuinely a shock that he's just right there waiting for them.
Yeah.
Punk rock. It also kind of feels like Flo.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But also just her surviving and being
her grit.
Yeah, her grit. Yeah. And her saying screw it to society and living life how she wants to do it. Or maybe it's the only way she can. Maybe it wasn't a choice, really. But we don't know that, so.
She could have laid down and died, though. Like, that's always... I feel like it's in the background of these books is these survivor characters, they carry this trauma with them, but they continue to endure. And
Yeah,
there is
that's like,
something
that's what I would have done.
badass about that.
I would have been like, yeah, okay, me too.
I'm done.
I
throw this cross away.
I don't need to live with this drama. I can die with it.
Yeah. You become a ghost. To read books forever.
That's the dream.
Right.
That's the hope. Like, fingers crossed. That's what actually happens when we die.
You have to die in a library that's well stocked and maintained.
Let's be serious. If I die in my own room, the books here will keep me going for a while. There are a lot I haven't read. I'm not proud of that, but, you know. Before we close up, I have something I need to address from last episode. Okay. Because I just edited that episode, and it's been bothering me that I did at one point call Lucy Julie. And I didn't even notice. And I just want to say that name didn't come from nowhere. I have a cousin named Julie. And Alan knows this. I've been having a weird family drama thing recently involving that cousin. So her name was just kind of in the forefront of my mind.
And ends in the same...
And it ends in the same Lee noise as Lucy and Holly. So that happened.
That's funny. I don't know that I noticed it.
I did notice it when we were talking, but I sure noticed it when I was editing, and I was like, whatever. Yeah. Also, just the way I said that, I know nobody knows my cousin, but I feel the need to say it's not her causing the drama. She and I were, like, being harassed by our uncle and aunt. It was a whole thing. Don't recommend it. If you want to reach out and tell us to stop wishing Kipps dead, you can on Twitter at Lockwood Podcast.
Poor Kipps.
Or you can yell at me in particular on Blue Sky at Inferior Caitlin.
Yeah, you can send your angry emails to contact@hollygroundmedia.com, or you can go to the contact page at hollygroundmedia.com/contact.
And remember to never break Skull's curfew.